Okay, guys, here we go. This is presentation number 7. This will be specific regarding training load. This is tucked into these different fitness evaluation protocols, and I have to tell you, it's a little bit quirky the way I have this tucked in here, and it's definitely quirky the way to describe it. So I want to just take maybe 5 minutes here to kind of go over what they were trying to get across in training load, because I don't think the book really did a great job of doing it. But let me jump over to 203 here. With training load, they have this kind of grid pattern, this 2 by 2 little matrix going on. And they talk about external training load and internal training load. And I'll just read it. But training load reflects the relative balance between various stressors imposed on the body via exercise, termed external training load, and the body's physiological response to exercise, termed internal training load. I struggle with the response to exercise being named training load. It just doesn't, my brain can't wrap around it. It should be like training adaptation as opposed to load, but nonetheless. So what the book gets across and what they have later on in a quiz somewhere is they talk about how like resistance exercise and they talk about resistance exercise being an external training load because here you are, you're picking up a weight, you're doing something, that's a load being placed on the body. And they talk about how, from a resistance exercise perspective, this can be accomplished by tracking the total number of repetitions or volume load here, or total number of repetitions, which is volume, or volume load, which is reps times sets times load, meaning the amount of weight moved for a given training session. So we can quantify that load. We've talked about this in other parts of our class, but it's the ability to quantify the work that we're asking a person to do, and that's total volume load. And if there is no loading per se, then it just becomes total volume, reps and sets. But that would be an external training load. The internal training load would be how the person perceives that work. So for example, they give RPE as an example, and it's how they perceive the workload. If they're at a value of 6 for a 30-minute training session, the RPE would be 180. So they do the math in terms of saying if you're at a level 6 RPE times the time you're working, that becomes a 180. So now it becomes, we're trying to find a way to quantify how the person perceives the work that they're doing. Is it too much or is it too little? People might have like a very high intrinsic drive and they love working and you can't work them hard enough, and 180 ain't nothing. But what they're trying to do with this matrix over here in the upper right hand corner is they're trying to basically show that when you have a person, let me just snap this open a little bit here so we can see it better. When you have a high external training load, meaning you're working with the person and you're applying a stimulus to them in terms of working out. If you have, excuse me, a high enough external training load, you're going to have positive adaptations. If you have an internal training load, meaning the person's perceiving the work as being low, then you might consider giving them more work to do, work them harder, etc. But what I see in this is that most of your clients will want a balance between the workload that you're providing, but also successes along the way. So they want the perception that they're achieving something and that they're actually doing work. And so this internal training load is a delicate conversation regarding just how much they can tolerate, what they think they can handle. You have to show them what they can actually handle. In essence, I say it all the time, like, I'm going to take my client, I'm going to show them the bar, then I'm going to shove them right over the bar, and I'm going to show them the next bar, which is a little bit higher, and then the next bar after that, and the next bar after that. So to a certain degree, I'm manipulating this kind of internal training load as I'm working with them because they might view the actual workout itself as too intense or too much work, or they just can't do it. And so to that degree, they have a higher stress internally, and they can't really operate and function and push like I would like to push them as a trainer. What they try to get across here, which is a little bit confusing, is Like, for example, when you have a high internal training load, that kind of high stressor, it's just too much, I can't handle it. And then you have a high external training load, that's how much work I'm applying into the environment for my client. They say consider less aggressive training progression, which I get, right? I'm being a little too aggressive here, and so they're getting stressed out over here. I get it. But what they try to show here is it's a plus environment, meaning a high environment for internal training load, and it's a high or plus environment for external training load. When you first look at this, it almost reads like, okay, they're telling you consider less aggressive training, but they're telling you to increase the internal training load and increase the external training load, right? Step on the gas some more. When in actuality, what they're saying is this is the environment, and it's also what they're feeling. When they're down here, they don't really have enough external load to get the response, and they really don't have any stress in their workouts. It's just kind of they're showing up and they're going through the motions. You should probably consider more aggressive progression. So somewhere over here and here, they try to differentiate between, okay, the internal training load, the stressor is too high. You might need to find a way to reduce the internal training load because it's too high. And they try to show this over here in the exact opposite. And I will tell you, as a person who's trained just a mountain of people and coached a ton of people as well, there's a balance in between these four quadrants. And I don't think this is really well presented here from a coaching standpoint. I think they could have done a better job in describing like how you have negative adaptations and positive adaptations, but you could have the conversation regarding how, as a trainer, it's part of our responsibility to show people what they can do. Because oftentimes people come in and they just don't know their capabilities. And part of our job is to push this gas pedal down here, to push them a little bit to get the positive adaptations. We have to apply a stressor to the human organism to get the response that we want. And sometimes, just saying, it's not a pleasant process for people, right? Physiological change requires behavioral change, and sometimes behavioral change is uncomfortable. But what they're trying to get across here is not having any additional or undue stress, if you will, or too much stress in that process to have a deleterious effect and it ends up being negative for your client. I will tell you that part of the process is navigating the amount of stress that your client is actually perceiving and showing them that they can do it. And you and I knowing full well as movement practitioners that the manipulation here in the training load, it's what gets the results. And so you have to be able to navigate a balance between these two. I took 8 minutes, not 5. All right, I'm signing off, guys.